Welcome to this episode of the Shared Security Podcast. And we have some great topics for you today. I saved the best for when Kevin could join. And look who's here. Kevin is here to join us for two fun topics talking about DOGE and what's going on at CISA. And then we're going to touch on Apple, which I just want to say I think Apple did the right thing, but we're gonna talk more.
I think
about
Apple
that.
did the best thing they could do.
That's right. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But welcome back, Kevin. I know you're not in your homestead. You're traveling today, but I'm so glad that you were able to make it.
So am I. I read the list of topics and I said, Tom, set this up for me.
I did. I basically did. I did. And we don't have Ed Scott here today, so we've had plenty of Canadian jokes over the last several weeks. You know, the whole 51st state thing. And, you know, I was actually talking about the things I buy from Canada. You know, I hope that they weren't going to be more expensive. And, you know, it's all working out because there's now a lot of people that are just buying Canadian in Canada, which I actually support because I think that's what they should do. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. But let's talk about what's going on at CISA. So I linked in the show notes a article from Brian Krebs talking about Trump 2.0. And honestly, Kevin, I don't know about you, but I can't even keep up anymore with what's going on with all of this.
I don't think we have to keep up.
DOGE stuff. It's nuts.
No, I don't think we have to keep up. I think what we have is, and I'm going to do my dangest to make it so that you don't have to bleep out anything. We have a coup going on, run by incompetent, ridiculously unintelligent fools.
Well, there's a guy named Big Balls. Is that?
Yeah. Well, but I'm not even talking about CISA. I'm dead serious here. I think that what we are watching is absolutely the most incompetent coup ever. And the only reason it's working, and the only reason it's working is nobody in power actually cares about the nation or the people in the nation. They are only worried about their own position, whether they can get reelected, whether I saw a post earlier today, I think it was by Charlotte Clymer, where they talked about that the Republicans in power today and the Democrats in power today saw what happened to Liz Cheney, and they're afraid of Trump mean tweeting them from his golf cart in Mar-a-Lago.
Oh my gosh.
What DOGE is doing is despicable. And I want to be clear. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I totally 100% get the idea. Hey, you know what? Government's too big. Hey, you know what? There is waste. Those are actual factual statements. I believe the federal government is bigger than it needs to be. I've said that for years. I believe that there is absolutely waste in the government. I personally believe that we're currently wasting every bit of salary that we pay to any congressperson, presidential candidate, or DOGE. But the problem is we can see the accuracy of things like waste and fraud and what have you, and still recognize that every single thing going on right now is asinine. Would you like to discuss the phishing simulation that they did by sending out an email to every single employee of the federal government from HR@opm.gov saying, send us the 5 points of what you did last week, and if you don't, you're fired? By the way, don't send random emails to HR@opm.gov outlining the 5 things that you think.
It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
And bluntly, and I'm gonna say it. I think that as two middle-aged straight white guys, we have it made. The number of people I care about, the number of people I know, the number of people I don't know, nor do I care about, yet are still getting screwed over because we have bigotry and hatred in power. We have people who are, and the part that makes me angry is they showed us who they were. Would we like to talk about the Nazi salutes that two main people in the
I mean,
administration have done publicly? Would we like to discuss the absolute horror they are putting onto our trans friends, our LGBTQ friends? This
it
whole
just
thing
goes on and
pisses me
on.
off.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and we can go on forever. This is disgusting, and I believe, and I mean this however you want to take it. I believe that every single person who is keeping quiet about this, every single person who is watching this come through and cheering from the cheap seats is disgusting. What is the saying? All that evil needs is for good men to stay silent.
that's a great quote.
Stop saying silent.
Quote. Yeah.
It's that simple. Stop staying silent. I said this when Roe v. Wade was overturned. I said that the Democrats failed us. And I'm not a Democrat, so I can make fun of them all I want. They failed us because they used the Republicans overturning Roe v. Wade as a boogeyman for 50 years to be elected, and they did nothing to solve it. And right now, we're seeing them do the same thing. Good Republicans are not good because they're staying silent. And what's going on? You want to focus on CISA? Yes, we have criminals that we have put in charge of the security of our nation. We have criminals that we have put in charge of determining whether or not we could keep things safe. And we're not even talking about the bootlicking that is happening to Moscow or the bootlicking that is happening to Trump. Would we like to discuss the fact that not a single person in DOGE are we aware of publicly has gone through any form of background check or security thing? We have people in positions of power that were suspected of being Russian agents, yet we gave them control of our security apparatus. Brilliant. This is disgusting. Sorry.
I made
it all the way through that without saying a single thing you have to believe.
That's true. That's true. You definitely gave the opinion of, I think, many Americans, including myself. I think my biggest problem.
I knew you weren't going to argue any.
No, I'm not going to argue with you. And in fact, I am sick and tired of hearing all of these people say we're doing this because of all the fraud and all the waste. Well, when they talk about fraud, I want to know where the evidence is. Show me the freaking evidence. If you say there's fraud, where's the evidence?
I will disagree with you.
End of story.
I don't need them to show me the evidence. I want them to show me the process they followed to determine it was fraud.
Well, that too.
Let's start with what auditor do you have? I don't mean the 12-year-old prepubescent virgin that you have assigned.
I mean, big balls.
The guy that got fired from his internship, which I didn't even know it was possible to get fired from an internship. That blew my mind when I read that. I honestly did not know you could get fired from an internship. How could you be so incompetent to get fired from an internship, right? This person is in charge. That's great. That's great. Show me what auditing background they went through. Show me. I'm not even going to argue the idea that they put forward a headline that said they saved $55 billion. The biggest item they saved was an $8 billion contract that, well, it was actually an $8 million contract, numbers. Right. They released a spreadsheet of people who are getting paid Social Security taxes. My understanding is that spreadsheet almost exactly mimics the entire population of the country. Well, as a member of the population of the country, I don't get Social Security taxes. So if that is factual, then you're already wrong. We won't even get into the idea that it was, people that are 150 years old and older are getting paid Social Security numbers, getting paid Social Security checks. This is, who was it who just put this out there? I want to say it was Ray Davidson, a good friend of mine, or Rin Ream, who's also a good friend of mine, put out there that we need to be prepared for the long haul. And that the problem here is, and this is what they're doing, and I believe they're doing it on purpose, is that they're throwing out such absolute stupid asinineness to just wear down the people who have a brain. And I will also tell you that I am embarrassed by the sheer number of people that are in our industry that are going along with the asinineness. The number of people that I see that I will see on stage at DEF CON, or I will see on stage at B-Sides, whatever, who are parroting blindly. Well, there's a lot of fraud in the federal government. We need to root it out. Yes, you're right. And as a security person, I would assume that you had at least half a brain at how you actually root out fraud.
Yeah, not with a wrecking ball.
Yeah. The fact that we're firing people in swaths and then scrambling to rehire them because we realize
that tells you a lot right
to do
there.
their jobs.
Yeah,
right.
That tells you everything right there.
Every bit of this makes me angry. Every bit of this makes me angry.
And I guess I want to just talk a little bit just about the impacts to the nation's cybersecurity, because, they made some cuts into CISA.
Yeah. We have none.
And that's what is scary to me, is that we have now cut people that are in critical positions, safeguarding the security of this country, the cybersecurity of this country, and without any rhyme or reason, and literally now we're going to see what happens this week, but this email, right, lists the top 5 things you did this week. And it's going to be fed into a Grok AI engine, which is going to determine people's futures. Whether you keep your job or not is up to some AI bot. That's where this is going.
Nobody's reading those. Nobody's reading them.
Of course not. They can't. Yeah. There's thousands of them. Yeah. No, it's going into Elon's Grok. That's what's happening.
What I'm also worried about, I'll say, I'm going to throw this out there, not as this is the worst thing possible, but if we're focusing on CISA, one of the things I'm very concerned about is the sheer number of companies that we know of, that you and I have worked with, that we've consulted with, that we've discussed things with, that are implementing controls because the federal government was going to mandate it, whether or not they did or not. Yeah, that was the worry, right? I'm going to implement this because I'm worried about the mandate, right? That are now backtracking on those rules. So I don't believe, and this is probably not a popular opinion, but I don't believe that CISA actually secures anything, right? We still have boots on the ground, people configuring things, people managing things. And I would like to believe that they're going to keep running forward. But I know that in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I have talked to a significant number of organizations where security people are very concerned because their upper management is backtracking. The same thing that happened with the DEI programs, right? The same thing where the minute the executive order went out, companies shut down DEI programs for a variety of reasons, right? We can either say it was bigotry or whether they were afraid because of their government contracts, they were in violation of the contracts, whatever that was. And I'm not excusing any of these stupid answers. I'm just saying that that's what they said. We're seeing the exact same thing in security. I have had like I said, a significant number of people come to me and, in conversations. Either they're working on getting their pen test scheduled, or they're one of our regular customers that we advise and consult with, and they're getting pushback from management and boards because, the federal government isn't going to mandate that anymore, so why should we do it?
Yeah, this is going to have
it scares me.
Massive effect on just corporations, just outside of the government, to your point. And we just won't even know the impacts right away, but in several months, I think we will. And that's what really scares me about all this. Yeah. Well, in maybe more positive news, if I could actually say that, right?
I don't know if I'd say it's more positive. It's different.
We talked about the other week, actually on the last episode, Scott and I, 2 episodes ago, Scott and I were talking about the this new investigator, not new, it was from 2016, the Investigatory Powers Act in the UK, and how politicians in the UK basically mandated Apple to basically create the backdoor, like we've talked about. And so Apple made a decision, and they said, we will never create or build a backdoor. So we're just going to kill advanced data protection in the UK. For UK citizens. So personally, I think that was like the best decision that they could make, because I'm glad Apple has said we're not building a backdoor, but I don't know. It kind of sets a new precedent, right? I mean, it's the first time this has happened.
Well, it's the first time it's happened in a country that wasn't a fascist dictatorship.
Right. Exactly. This is not China.
Yeah.
This is the United Kingdom.
Right. This is UK. We've talked. If somebody listening to this doesn't know my opinion of encryption backdoors, then they're not paying attention.
Go back. Pretty much every episode we have some opinion from Kevin.
They're bad.
They're just bad. Say they're bad.
Period.
And me.
They're bad.
We both agree. Yeah.
I challenge any single person that tells me that an encryption backdoor is good to reach out to me, because I had some questions. And one of the very first questions I have is, will you turn over an unencrypted backup of every one of your systems to me that I'm allowed to look through? If your answer is no, then you should not want a backdoor in encryption, period.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think it is interesting how Apple responded to this. And I was talking to Brittany earlier today, after you sent out, like, hey, Kevin, here's the topics. I was talking to Brittany, and to me, this is very similar to the move. And I know that Apple will appreciate this comparison. I believe that Apple did the same thing Pornhub did. Yes, I'm equating Apple and Pornhub.
Let's go with it. Okay.
A variety of states said you have to verify users, and you're liable, and you're problem if you don't do it, and blah, blah, blah. And Pornhub's response was, great, we're going to piss off every one of your residents that use our service. Whatever, right? Judge, whatever. We're going to piss off every one of our customers that lives in your state. And we're going to tell them to reach out to you. And as a matter of fact, you give them your email address so that they can very easily respond and say, hey, what are you doing? Apple did the same thing, right? Apple said, and I agree with what you said earlier, that this is the best answer they have, right? We're not going to backdoor encryption, because they can't backdoor encryption just for the UK.
No.
Right? Like it's not how encryption works, right? You're in the UK, you get a backdoor, but if you're not in the UK, you don't get one. So we're like the encryption Oprah. So instead, because of that, so if they backdoored the encryption, every phone, every backup, whatever, would have this issue. Doesn't matter where you were from. So what they did instead was they turned off the option of encrypting this stuff for UK users, and then gave them a message that said, go complain to your people.
Yeah.
Right? We can't do anything here. No. We're Apple. They're ignoring us. We tried our dangdest to get them to realize the stupidity of what they were asking, the actual vileness of what they're asking, and they ignored us. So if you want to fix this problem, and you want encrypted backups, and you want encryption again, go yell, protest, complain to your, MPs, I think is the right term.
Yeah.
Right. And bluntly, yes, go do that. I think everybody should go do that. If you live in a country that believes that backdooring encryption is a good idea, and like we said, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? The U.S. has long pushed.
Our country has believed that for a long time.
Until they acknowledge that China had taken over the telcos. Then all of a sudden, use Signal.
Well, now let's see what happens now, because, I don't know. I have no idea what this administration is going to even say to that anymore.
I have an idea, and it will be stupid.
Yeah,
but,
it will be.
I'm curious if we're going to see a drop in, either a drop in Apple purchases or a rise in Android purchases, right? In the UK. It's not that easy to switch.
No.
While there are ways to do it, don't get me wrong, it is trivial to move your data from one to the other. That's trivial. There's lots of processes to do that.
Yeah.
But the systems are fundamentally different in odd ways for the end user. Right. And this is coming from somebody who went from
you were an Apple
iOS
user
for years, and I switched over to Android. And I would like to believe that I am a slightly more technical user than many. So, and the switch, just that's slightly different, right? It goes back to the conversation we had about the light switches in my new house. you think the number of times I walk up to the light switch and I am positive that when I press it, it's going to turn on the kitchen cabinet lights. And I press it and it turns on the dining room light. And it's shocking. That's the same thing that happens when you switch from iOS to Android or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
You believe you know what's about to happen, and it does not work the way you think that it does. Yes, I just equated a phone to my new house. Apple is Pornhub, and my phone is a new house.
Yes. And with that, I think that's a great place to leave, to end the episode, actually, because we've equated all three of those things together. So, well, Kevin, thank you for sharing your opinion. And you know what? Honestly, man, it's an opinion shared by many Americans. So
I believe
and people across the world.
I wish more of the Americans would stand up and say it. Right?
Yeah.
Reach out to your congresspeople.
Yes.
Complain. The only people who have power to do this. I'm not calling for revolution. That's next. But reach out to the people that have the power. Make it clear to them that they need to fix the problem that they've accepted.
And vote as well. The midterms are coming up. So that's important to send a message. That's right. That's right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay secure, and stay private. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you like to get your podcasts. Visit sharedsecurity.net for merch, previous episodes, and more. If you'd like to help support the podcast, join our Patreon to get ad-free episodes and many more exclusive supporter-only benefits. Visit sharedsecurity.net/supporter for more details.